The wind cut through the funeral tent like a blade. January cold, the kind that makes your lungs ache. Folding chairs froze through black wool suits. The diesel heaters struggled, coughing out warmth that died 2 feet from the vents. Gray sky pressed down on Cedar County like a threat. I stood at the podium, looking at faces I'd known 40 years. Doris lay in that casket. 45 years of marriage ended, and I was supposed to find words. Behind me, my nephew Mitchell whispered something to his sister Vivian. During my wife's eulogy, their breath made clouds in the cold air. Hank Morrison caught my arm as people filed out. His hand was shaking. 50 years running Morrison Funeral Home. I'd never seen Hank's hand shake. Mr. Dalton, his voice dropped low. There's something in the office you need to see, now. He pulled me inside, shut the door, spread 2 documents on his desk under the fluorescent buzz. 2 wills, both with Doris's name. Your nephew filed this one 3 days before she died. Hank's finger tapped the typed paper. But I found this. He unzipped the garment bag. Doris's burial dress. The lining had been sewn with a hidden pocket. Inside, yellowed paper, handwritten. A note in her careful script. Warren, the brand tells the truth. My chest went tight. What are you saying? Hank met my eyes. Don't tell Mitchell. Mr. Dalton, I think you're in danger. I stared at the 2 documents. The typed one had signatures, notary seals, legal language that made my head swim. It gave Mitchell immediate ownership of the ranch. All 1,200 acres, the cattle, equipment, everything. Said I'd signed power of attorney 6 months ago. Said Doris had agreed to transfer everything to younger, capable management. I'd never signed anything. Doris would have gutted anyone who suggested selling. The handwritten will was different. Her actual handwriting, the loops and slants I'd seen on grocery lists and birthday cards for 45 years. It left the ranch to me for life. Then to Roy Tucker's grandson Jake when I passed. Keep it in ranching families. Keep it working land. The signature. I picked up the typed version. Look at the D in Doris. That's not how she wrote it. Hank nodded. I noticed that too. Mr. Dalton, your nephew filed this will while your wife was still in hospice. He had it notarized, registered with the county. Legally, as of right now, he owns your ranch. The room tilted slightly. That's fraud. Yes, sir, but he's got the paperwork. Court-filed paperwork. Hank touched the handwritten will carefully. This one, hidden in her dress lining. She knew something was wrong. She was protecting you. I read her note again. Warren, the brand tells the truth. The brand. She'd asked about Bess that last week. Our oldest cow, number 47. Asked if I still checked her, if I remembered the day we branded her together 40 years back. I need to make a copy of this, I said. Already done. Hank pulled an envelope from his desk drawer. Originals for you, copies locked in my safe. And Mr. Dalton, be careful. Mitchell's been calling me twice a day, asking when the burial's scheduled, when he can begin estate proceedings. Man's in a hurry. My truck's engine complained in the cold. I sat in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, reading Doris's note over and over. The smell of the funeral, lilies and furniture polish, clung to my suit. The brand tells the truth. 40 years ago, we'd have branded Bess together. Spring morning, me working the chute, Doris heating the iron. She'd laughed when Bess kicked, said that cow had more fight than sense. We'd given her the 47 brand. Our 47th cow that year, the start of building the herd. My phone buzzed. 17 missed calls, all Mitchell. I scrolled to his voicemail. Uncle Warren, I know today's difficult, but we really need to discuss estate transition. I've been consulting with developers. There's significant interest in the property. The May cattle auction would be the perfect liquidation window. Clean break, fresh start for everyone. Call me back. May auction, 3 months away. He was already planning it. Already counting money from selling my life. I drove home on roads I'd known since childhood. Past Roy Tucker's place, his porch light on, coffee probably brewing at 5 a.m. like always. Past the Morrison place, where Hank's grandfather had started the funeral business in 1947. Past fields my grandfather had broken with a team of horses in 1943. The ranch gate appeared in my headlights. Someone had changed the chain. New lock. I got out, checked the fence post. The old lock lay in the dead grass, bolt cutters clean through it. Fresh tracks in the frozen mud. Truck tires bigger than mine. Mitchell had already been here. I used my spare keys on the house door. Inside smelled wrong. Coffee, but I hadn't made any. Boot prints on the kitchen floor. Not my boots. On the table, a stack of papers. Temporary management agreement typed across the top. My name on signature lines, dated today. A note in Mitchell's handwriting. Found these in Mom's papers. Just need your signature to make everything official. Don't worry about the details. I've got it handled. Behind me, headlights swept across the window. Truck engine, that deep rumble of a new diesel. The kind that cost $80,000. Mitchell's voice carried through the door. Uncle Warren, saw your truck. We need to talk about tomorrow. I folded Doris's note, tucked it in my shirt pocket. Put the handwritten will in the kitchen safe behind grandfather's photo. The typed version, Mitchell's forgery, I left on the table where he'd see I'd found it. The doorknob turned. Mitchell let himself in with a key I hadn't given him. Uncle Warren, he smiled, but his eyes went straight to the papers on the table. I hope you don't mind. I had some locks changed. Security, you know. At your age, we can't be too careful. The church basement smelled like weak coffee and casseroles going cold. 40 people, maybe 50, picking at food they'd brought to comfort the widower. I stood by the door, wanting to leave, but Pastor Frank kept steering mourners my way. Warren's holding up well, he'd say. Strong faith gets us through. Mitchell worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, accepting condolences, talking in that smooth voice he'd learned at law school. Vivian stayed close to him, her CPA smile fixed in place. They moved through the crowd together, whispering. I watched them corner Mrs. Patterson from the bank, watched Roy Tucker's face go hard when Mitchell put a hand on his shoulder, watched Pastor Frank nod along to something Vivian was explaining with her hands. Could I have everyone's attention? Mitchell tapped a spoon against a coffee cup. The room quieted. I know this is a difficult time, but I want to thank you all for supporting Uncle Warren. As family, Vivian and I feel responsible for making sure he's taken care of. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. The ranch is a lot for one person to manage, especially at his age. Dad's heart attack 3 years ago taught us that stress kills. We don't want Uncle Warren facing that same fate. Mitchell pulled papers from his jacket. So we've drawn up a temporary management agreement just until things settle. I'll handle the daily operations, the bookkeeping, all the details that add up. He crossed the room to me, held out the papers in front of everyone, a pen in his other hand. Uncle Warren, this just formalizes what we've been discussing. Lets you rest, grieve, heal. Everything stays in the family. I looked at those papers, saw my name on signature lines, the same forgery Doris had warned me about. We haven't been discussing anything, I said. Mitchell's smile didn't waver. I know you're overwhelmed. That's natural. That's why family steps in. He glanced at the crowd. Right? Heads nodded. Pastor Frank cleared his throat. Warren, the boy's trying to help. No shame in accepting support. Sign it. Dad would have wanted this, someone said. I couldn't see who. Mitchell set the papers on the table in front of me, the pen beside them, 40 people watching, waiting. Vivian moved to my other side. Uncle Warren, we found some irregularities in the accounts. Property taxes unpaid, insurance lapsed. We can fix all of it, but we need authority to act. Her voice dropped. Before the county gets involved. The room pressed in. Coffee smell, mixing with perfume and aftershave, in the wool of winter coats. Sound of people shifting, waiting, judging. My hand hovered over the pen. Roy Tucker's voice cut through. Warren, you don't have to sign a damn thing you don't want to sign. Mitchell turned. Roy, with respect, this is family business. Warren's been my neighbor 50 years. That makes it my business. The temperature in the room shifted. Pastor Frank stepped forward. Gentlemen, this isn't the time or place, so I'm not signing. I pushed the papers back across the table. Mitchell's smile finally cracked. Uncle Warren, you're not thinking clearly. Grief affects judgment. That's why we have these safeguards. These legal protections for what? Old men who don't know their own minds? I stood up. My knee popped, loud in the sudden quiet. I know exactly what I'm looking at. I know what you filed with the county 3 days before Doris died. Vivian's face went pale. This isn't the place, Mitchell said, voice tight now. We should discuss this privately, with your lawyer present. If you have one, if you've thought that far ahead. The implication hung there. Old man, confused, can't handle his own affairs. I walked out. Behind me, voices rose. Mitchell saying something about diminished capacity and duty of care. Pastor Frank trying to calm everyone down. Roy's boots following me up the stairs. Outside, the cold air hit like salvation. Roy caught up, handed me my coat. That boy's planning something, Roy said. Already done it. He forged Doris's will, filed it, while she was dying. I showed him the note. Warren, the brand tells the truth. Roy read it twice. What's she mean? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. 2 days later, I sat across from Grace Chen in her law office. New to town, moved from Lincoln 6 months back. Her desk was organized like a military operation. Files stacked by color, pens lined up, coffee cup on a coaster that said, estate law, because family drama needs lawyers. She read through both wills, made notes on a yellow legal pad. Outside her window, snow started falling. Light, dry flakes that wouldn't amount to much. This is fraud, she said finally. Clear forgery. The signatures don't match, the dates don't align with your wife's condition timeline, and the power of attorney is backdated to a period when, according to her medical records, she was fully competent and would never have agreed to this. Relief flooded through me. So we file an injunction, get it thrown out. Grace set down her pen. Mr. Dalton, it's not that simple. Your nephew's will is already filed with the county. It has a notary seal, witness signatures, full legal formatting. The burden of proof is on us to prove forgery, and proving forgery requires either the original documents for forensic analysis or concrete evidence of fraud. I have the original. I showed her Doris's handwritten will. She examined it carefully. This helps, but a handwritten will found after death, without witnesses, hidden in burial clothes, a judge will question its validity. Your nephew will argue it's not legally executed, that you fabricated it, that your grief is making you confused. The word again, confused. They've already started that narrative, I said. At the funeral reception, Mitchell made sure everyone heard him say I wasn't thinking clearly. Grace nodded. Classic elder abuse tactic. Isolate the victim, control the narrative, make everyone doubt the victim's competence. She pulled out another file. I did some research after you called. Your nephew has significant debts. 3 failed real estate investments in Omaha, all foreclosed. He owes private investors roughly $200,000. So he needs my land. He needs it fast. Those investors aren't banks. They're the kind who break kneecaps when payments are late. She leaned forward. Mr. Dalton, without the original notarized will or solid proof of forgery, I can't get a judge to issue an injunction. The county clerk showed me Mitchell's filing. It has every legal requirement met. On paper, it's airtight. The snow outside was picking up, covering the ground in white that would be mud by tomorrow. What do I do? Grace closed the folder. You find proof. Documents, recordings, witnesses, anything that shows your nephew planned this fraud. And Mr. Dalton, you do it fast, because once he files for that May auction, the court considers it asset liquidation during probate. Legal and binding. I stood to leave. My reflection in her window looked old. 78 years old, suddenly fighting my own nephew for land my grandfather broke. Grace's voice stopped me at the door. One more thing. Last month, a case came through from the 1890s. Homesteader named Erickson died with no will. His daughter found a handwritten document sewn into his burial suit. The judge honored it, cited testamentary intent through extraordinary measures. It's precedent. Not strong, but it exists. What do I need to make it work? Proof your wife feared fraud. Diary entries, letters, witnesses who heard her express concern. Something showing she deliberately hid this will as protection, not accident. I thought of Doris's last weeks. Her questions about Bess. Her making me promise to check the brands every month. Her telling Roy to watch over Warren like she knew something was coming. I'll find it, I said. Outside, the snow was already melting on the sidewalk. Winter in Nebraska, nothing stayed frozen forever. Roy's kitchen smelled like coffee and bacon grease. 5 in the morning, dark outside, but his truck was already warming in the drive. Rancher hours. Up before the sun, work done before most people hit snooze. He poured 2 cups without asking, set one in front of me. The steam rose in this dim light over his kitchen table. Outside, wind rattled the window frames. You look like hell, Roy said. Didn't sleep. Mitchell? I nodded, wrapped my hands around the mug, feeling the heat. Grace says without proof of forgery, I've got no case. Judge won't even hear it. Roy sat down heavy, 71 years old, joints complaining in the cold. We'd been neighbors since we were 18, helped each other through droughts and blizzards and cattle prices that should have bankrupted us both. There's something I didn't tell you at the funeral. He looked into his coffee. Last Tuesday, around 10 at night, I was checking fence line near your south pasture. Saw a truck parked at your barn, not yours, new F-350, black, fancy rims. 2 men talking with Mitchell. What men? Didn't recognize them. But one had a briefcase, the other was taking photos of your land with a surveyor's camera. Professional equipment. They were out there an hour, walking your property lines, measuring. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Developers. That'd be my guess, and Warren. Roy met my eyes. This was the Tuesday before Doris passed. He was already planning the sale while she was still alive. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, Roy's cattle were waking up, starting their morning sounds. Normal ranch noises. Everything normal except my nephew was stealing my life while I slept. I'll testify to that, Roy said. In court, affidavit, whatever Grace needs. And I'm not the only one. You remember those handshake deals you made? Fence repair with Dale Henderson, equipment lease with Tom Warner, cattle loans with Bob Mitchell. No relation to your nephew, thank God. Those weren't written down. No, but 6 of us old-timers remember them. Remember you keeping your word on every deal, cash or handshake. Your nephew keeps saying you're incompetent, can't manage affairs. Roy's hand hit the table. We'll line up and tell the judge exactly how competent you are, how you've run that ranch sharp for 50 years. Something loosened in my chest. You do that? Warren, we're not letting some slick city boy steal your land. Not while we're breathing. He refilled both cups. I'll call the boys today. We'll have coffee here tomorrow, all of us. Figure out what everyone remembers. Get it straight for Grace. The sky outside was starting to lighten. Gray dawn. More snow coming by the look of those clouds. Mitchell's got money behind him, I said. Lawyers, investors, people who break legs when they don't get paid. And you've got us. We don't break legs, but we remember, and we don't lie. Roy stood, grabbed his coat off the hook. Come on, let's check your cattle before we lose the light. Grace's office was warmer the second time. She had a space heater running, fighting the February cold that leaked through the old building's windows. Her desk was covered in law books, yellow legal pads, printouts of cases going back 100 years. I found it, she said when I walked in, pointed to a book open to a page marked with sticky notes. Erickson v. Erickson, Nebraska Supreme Court, 1892. Homesteader died, intestate, no formal will. His daughter found a handwritten document sewn into the lining of his burial suit. The probate judge initially rejected it, but on appeal, the Supreme Court ruled that extraordinary concealment demonstrates testamentary intent. Quote, a document hidden with such deliberate care in such intimate location suggests the deceased feared interference with their final wishes and took uncommon measures to preserve them. She looked up. It's precedent, Mr. Dalton. Not strong, not modern, but it exists in Nebraska case law. I sat down. The chair creaked. What do we need? Grace pulled out a fresh legal pad. 3 things. First, corroborating evidence that your wife feared fraud. Diary entries, letters, conversations with friends or doctors. Anything showing she deliberately concealed this will. I'll look. She kept notebooks for the ranch. Maybe there's something. Second, witness testimony about your nephew's character and motives. The debt he's in, the developers he's meeting with, his rush to sell. We build a pattern showing he had reason to forge documents. Roy saw him with developers. Tuesday before Doris died. Grace made a note. Good. That's very good. I'll need Roy's affidavit. And she tapped her pen against the pad. Third, and this is crucial, we need to prove your mental competence. Mitchell's already planting seeds that you're confused, overwhelmed, not capable of managing your affairs. We counter that with testimony from neighbors, business associates, anyone who can show you're sharp. Roy's organizing coffee tomorrow. 6 ranchers who've done deals with me over the years. Perfect. I'll prepare a questionnaire. Dates, details, specifics, the more precise the better. She closed the law book. Mr. Dalton, I'm not going to lie to you. This is an uphill fight. Your nephew has filed documents, legal and proper on their face. We're asking a judge to look past those documents and honor a handwritten will found after death. It's unusual. Judges don't like unusual. Outside, sleet started hitting the window. That sounded like rice on glass. But you think we have a chance? Grace was quiet for a moment. I think you have the truth. Sometimes that's enough. She handed me a card. There's a forensic document examiner in Omaha. If we can prove the signatures on Mitchell's will don't match your wife's actual handwriting, we've got something concrete. It'll cost about $2,000. $2,000. Mitchell had frozen my bank accounts yesterday. I'd tried to buy feed and the card declined. Had to borrow cash from Roy just to keep the ranch running. I'll find it, I said. There's one more thing. Grace's voice changed, got careful. The May auction your nephew mentioned? I checked with the county. He's already filed preliminary paperwork. If we don't stop this by May 15th, the court considers it legal asset liquidation during probate. You'll lose everything, even if we prove fraud later. May 15th, 3 months. 12 weeks to prove my nephew was a thief before he sold my grandfather's land to developers. I stood up. The sleet was turning to snow, wet and heavy, the kind that made roads dangerous and cattle miserable. Find me that diary or those letters, Grace said. That's our best shot. Doris was protecting you, prove it, and we've got a case. The bank smelled like carpet cleaner and the fake flowers they kept on the counter. I'd been banking here 40 years. Same building, though they'd remodeled twice. The manager, Tom Hendricks, had gone to school with Mitchell. That should have been my first warning. I handed my card to the teller. Need to withdraw $5,000, ranch operating expenses. She swiped it, frowned at her screen, swiped it again. Mr. Dalton, I'm getting a freeze code. Let me get Tom. Tom came out from the back, his smile too practiced. Warren, could you come to my office? The office had photos of his kids on the desk, diplomas on the wall, a window looking out at Main Street where slush was already turning brown. There's a problem with your account, Tom said, sliding a paper across his desk. Court order came through yesterday. Emergency conservatorship filed by your niece, Vivian Dalton, CPA, claims you're mentally unfit to manage finances. The paper had my name at the top. Legal language I couldn't follow, Vivian's signature, a doctor's assessment I'd never sat for. I never saw a doctor. Says here Dr. Morrison examined you February 8th. Noted signs of confusion, memory loss, inability to process complex financial information. Tom's finger traced the lines. Based on that assessment, the court granted temporary conservatorship, all accounts frozen until the hearing next month. What hearing? Competency hearing, March 15th. Until then, Vivian has authority over all financial decisions. She can access accounts, pay bills, manage assets. He pulled the paper back. It's for your protection, Warren. Make sure you don't get taken advantage of during a vulnerable time. When my hands were shaking, I gripped the arms of the chair. Tom, I need that money. I've got ranch hands to pay, feed to buy, utilities. Cattle don't stop eating because of paperwork. I understand. But my hands are tied. Court order supersedes everything. He stood up, clearly wanting me gone. Talk to Vivian. She can authorize necessary expenses. That's what conservators do. I drove to the ranch supply store, tried to buy a 100-pound sack of mineral supplement. Card declined. The kid at the register looked embarrassed. Roy found me in the parking lot, sitting in my truck, staring at nothing. They froze everything, I said. Roy didn't ask who, just said how much you need. $5,000 to get through the month. He pulled out his checkbook, wrote it right there against his steering wheel, handed it through my window. Pay me back when you can, or don't. Doesn't matter. I couldn't look at him. 78 years old, borrowing money from my neighbor like I was some kid who couldn't manage. Warren, Roy's voice was hard. Look at me. I did. This is what neighbors do. You do the same for me. Have done the same for me. He started his truck. Come to town meeting tonight, 7 o'clock. Mitchell's presenting something to the planning commission. You should be there. The town hall was packed, every folding chair filled, people standing along the walls. I got there 10 minutes early but still had to stand in back. The room smelled like wet wool. In the propane heater they only fired up for big meetings. Mitchell stood at the front with Vivian, a man in an expensive suit, and a woman with a laptop and projector. Professional presentation, the kind you see in corporate boardrooms, not Nebraska town halls. Pastor Frank called the meeting to order. We have a special presentation tonight from Mitchell Dalton regarding development opportunities for the Cedar County region. Mitchell clicked a button. The projector showed an aerial photo of my ranch, 1,200 acres outlined in red. Thank you all for coming, Mitchell said. His voice carried, confident. I'm here tonight to present an opportunity for economic growth that will benefit our entire community. The next slide. Architectural renderings. Buildings, roads, a pond with a fountain. Meadowbrook Senior Living Community, 85 units, assisted living and memory care, creates 60 full-time jobs, generates significant property tax revenue, brings healthcare resources to our area. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving. The Dalton Ranch property is ideally located, access to Highway 80, proximity to medical facilities in North Platte, beautiful views. Another click. Spreadsheets showing economic projections. Conservatively, this development adds $3 million to our annual tax base. That's new roads, better schools, infrastructure improvements. Someone in the front row started clapping. Others joined in. Mitchell held up a hand, humble. Now, I know change is difficult. My Uncle Warren has owned this land for decades. But the reality is, he can no longer manage a working ranch. At his age, with his declining cognitive function, the property has become a burden. I felt people turn to look at me in the back. Roy's hand gripped my shoulder. The most compassionate solution is to transition the land to its highest and best use, while ensuring Uncle Warren receives quality care in a facility equipped to handle his needs. Mitchell's voice dripped sympathy. This isn't just good business, it's good family stewardship. Vivian stood up. I'd like to add, as Warren's conservator, I've reviewed the ranch finances. The property is overleveraged, behind on taxes, insurance has lapsed. Without intervention, he faces foreclosure within 18 months. This development prevents that outcome while preserving his dignity. Lies, all lies. The property was paid off, taxes current, insurance active. But who would believe me, over a CPA with court-appointed authority? I'd like to open the floor for community input, Pastor Frank said. A hand went up. Dale Morrison, the auctioneer. Mitchell, what's the timeline on this? Pending zoning approval and final estate settlement, we're targeting May 15th for the land sale. That allows spring construction start, first residents by next winter. May 15th, the auction date. He was announcing it publicly, making it official. Roy stood up. I have some concerns about this development. Mitchell's smile didn't waver. Of course, Roy. We value all community feedback. First concern is you're planning to sell land that isn't yours. Warren Dalton is still alive, still competent, and still owns that ranch. The room got quiet. Roy, with respect, the courts have determined The courts determined your sister could freeze his bank account based on a medical exam that never happened. Dr. Morrison's been dead 3 years. You forged that assessment. Gasps from the crowd. Vivian's face went white. Mitchell recovered fast. That's a serious accusation. Roy, we understand you're loyal to Warren, but you're not a medical professional. You're not qualified to assess his cognitive state. I'm qualified to know when someone's lying. Roy turned to face the crowd. I've known Warren Dalton 50 years. He's sharper than most men half his age. This development plan is theft dressed up in flowery language. Roy, please sit down, Pastor Frank said. This isn't the time. When is the time? After Mitchell sells Warren's land out from under him. After he puts a man in a nursing home against his will? Roy's voice filled the room. This is exactly the time. The man in the expensive suit leaned over, whispered to Mitchell. Mitchell nodded, then addressed the crowd. I understand emotions are high. Change is difficult for our older community members, especially those who struggle with adapting to new realities. He looked directly at me. Uncle Warren, I know this is hard, but Vivian and I are doing this out of love. We want you safe, cared for, without the stress of managing assets you can no longer handle. Applause. Scattered at first, then stronger, half the room clapping. The other half quiet, uncomfortable, watching to see what I'd do. I walked to the front. My knee popped with each step. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Mitchell, you filed a will 3 days before Doris died. A will I never signed, she never agreed to. You're selling land you stole through forged documents. My voice shook but held. That's not love. That's fraud. Mitchell's expression shifted. Concern, pity, the look you give someone who's lost their grip on reality. Uncle Warren, there is no other will. The document you're referring to, the one you claim was hidden in Aunt Doris's dress, that's grief talking. That's your mind creating narratives to explain change you can't accept. He turned to the crowd. This is exactly why conservatorship was necessary, why we need compassionate intervention. Warren needs help, not enabling. Pastor Frank stood. Warren, perhaps you should go home, get some rest. Let the professionals handle this. Even the pastor, even Frank, who'd known me 40 years. I looked around the room, saw pity in some faces, agreement in others, doubt everywhere. Only Roy and maybe 6 others looked angry on my behalf. I walked out. Behind me, the meeting continued. Mitchell's voice explaining site plans, job creation, timeline for demolition of the existing structures. Demolition. They were going to bulldoze the house my grandfather built. Outside, March cold cut through my jacket. The parking lot was full of trucks and cars, everyone inside watching my life get carved up and sold. Roy caught up with me. Didn't say anything, just walked me to my truck, made sure I could drive. Tomorrow, Roy said. My kitchen, 7 a.m. The boys will be there. We're not done fighting. I drove home past fields that wouldn't be mine by summer, past the barn where 4 generations had worked, past fence lines I'd ridden with my father when I was 10 years old. In the house, the phone was ringing. Mitchell's number on the caller ID, I didn't answer, just sat at the kitchen table in the dark, listening to it ring and ring and ring. The barn smelled like hay and cattle and diesel fuel. Cold morning, early March, ice still hanging on the water troughs but starting to drip now. Spring coming, whether I was ready or not. Roy's grandson Jake was helping me feed. 20 years old, good kid, worked hard without complaining. He'd grow into a fine rancher if someone gave him the chance. Mr. Dalton, this one's got a cough. Jake pointed to a heifer in the corner pen. Want me to separate her? Yeah. Get her in the isolation stall. We'll check her later. I climbed down from the hayloft, knee complaining. Landing sent a jolt up my spine that made me grab the ladder. Jake pretended not to notice. You doing okay? Fine, just old joints and cold weather. I walked to the tack room, looking for the liniment. The room smelled like leather and saddle soap. 50 years of accumulated gear hanging on pegs, bridles and halters and tools my father had used. On the shelf behind the first aid kit, I found something I wasn't looking for. A notebook, spiral-bound, cover worn soft. Doris's handwriting on the front, Ranch Records 2023. I sat down on the tack room stool, opened it. Her careful script filled the pages. Cattle births, vaccinations, feed costs, weather notes. The kind of records she'd kept for 45 years, organized and precise. Then, halfway through, the entries changed. March 15th, 2023. Mitchell called again, asking about the will. 3rd time this month, asked if we'd considered modernizing our estate plan. I told him we had a will, it was fine. He got pushy, said times change, family structures change. We should consider efficiency. Don't like it. My hands tightened on the notebook. April 2nd, Mitchell showed up unannounced with a woman he called an estate planning specialist. Tried to get us to sign new documents. Said our current will was outdated and legally vulnerable. Warren almost signed just to get them out of the house. I said no. They left angry. Mitchell said we were being stubborn and foolish. His exact words. April 20th, Vivian called, asked detailed questions about our health, medications, doctor visits, asked if Warren had been confused lately. When I said no, she said memory issues can be subtle. Felt like she was fishing. Told her we're fine and to stop calling. May 7th. Saw Mitchell, parked on the south property line, with two men in suits. They had surveying equipment. When Warren drove out to ask what they were doing, Mitchell said he was just showing some friends the family land, but they were measuring, taking photos. Warren didn't notice, but I did. The entries continued through summer and fall, each one documenting Mitchell's pressure, Vivian's probing questions, their increasing urgency about the will and estate planning. The last entry was dated January 10th, 4 days before Doris died. The doctor says it's weeks now, maybe days. Mitchell doesn't know yet. We haven't told anyone. But I know what he'll do when I'm gone. He'll go after Warren, try to take the ranch. I've hidden the real will where Warren will find it when he needs it. Told Roy to watch over him. The brand will tell the truth. Warren will understand when the time comes. I just hope it's enough. I'm so tired. I sat there holding the notebook, the smell of leather and hay and old wood around me, and felt my wife reaching across death to protect me one more time. Dalton? Jake's voice from the barn. You okay in there? I wiped my eyes. Yeah, fine. Be right out. I tucked the notebook inside my jacket. Evidence. Proof Doris had feared exactly what happened. Grace would know what to do with this. Outside, Jake was working with Bess, our oldest cow. She stood patient in the chute while he checked her hooves. Number 47, branded 40 years ago when Doris and I were young and thought we had forever. The brand. Doris's note said the brand would tell the truth. I walked over, looked at Bess's hide. The 47 was clear, faded some with age but still readable, nothing unusual, just the mark we'd put on her decades ago. She's in good shape, Jake said. Amazing for her age. Most cows don't make it this long. She's tough. Doris always said Bess had more fight than sense. Jake ran his hand over the brand. Huh. There's something weird here. See how the hair grows different? He traced a pattern with his finger. Almost looks like there's scarring under the old brand, like someone worked on her recently. I looked closer. He was right. Fresh scar tissue, barely visible under winter hair. Someone had done something to this cow's hide. Careful and deliberate. The brand will tell the truth. Jake, help me get her into the exam chute. I need to look at this closer. Grace's office phone went to voicemail. I tried her cell. Same thing. Left a message. It's Warren Dalton. Found Doris's diary. She documented everything. Mitchell's pressure, the developers, all of it. Call me back. I spread the notebook on my kitchen table next to the handwritten will and Doris's note. Evidence building. Proof of a pattern. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Uncle Warren, we need to settle this before it gets uglier. I'm prepared to offer $200K cash, immediate payment. You keep the house and 10 acres for life. After that, property transfers to us. It's generous. Think about it. $200,000 to give up 1,190 acres. To walk away from my grandfather's work, my father's work, my work. I deleted the text. Outside, the sound of a truck coming up the drive. Not Roy's. Newer. That expensive diesel sound. Mitchell. Again, I put Doris's diary in the safe behind grandfather's photo, added the will, the note, everything I couldn't afford to lose, spun the lock. The knock on the door was polite. Mitchell's voice through the wood. Uncle Warren, I know you're home. We need to talk. I've got papers you need to see. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. He stood on my porch in a wool coat that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Clean-shaven, hair-styled, every inch the successful nephew come to help his aging uncle. Did you get my offer? He asked. I did. And? No. His smile thinned. Uncle Warren, I'm trying to be generous here. After the conservatorship hearing, after we prove you can't manage your affairs, the court will authorize sale anyway. You'll get nothing. This way, you keep dignity, keep your home, walk away with cash. Or I prove you forged documents and you go to jail. Mitchell laughed. Not mean, just amused. With what proof? A handwritten will no one witnessed? A note you claim was hidden in burial clothes? Uncle Warren, do you know how that sounds? I know how fraud sounds. Sounds like you. His expression hardened. Last chance, take the offer. Because if you make me fight this publicly, if you make me prove in court that you're incompetent, it's going to be humiliating for both of us. Get off my property. It's not your property. Not anymore. Legally, I own it. The conservatorship just lets you live here until we sort out where to place you. He pulled an envelope from his coat. Eviction notice. Effective April 1st. You have 30 days to vacate. He set it on the porch rail and walked back to his truck. I stood there watching him drive away, the eviction notice fluttering in the March wind. The diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease that had soaked into every surface over 40 years. I sat in my usual booth by the window, the one I'd sat in every Thursday morning since Lyndon Johnson was president. 3 ranchers I'd known since high school sat at the counter. Tom Warner, Dale Henderson, Bob Mitchell, no relation to my nephew. We'd helped each other through droughts and cattle prices and winters that should have killed us all. Tom looked at me, then away, said something to Dale. All 3 stood up, left their coffee half finished, moved to a booth on the far side. Sarah, the waitress who'd worked here 30 years, brought my coffee. Her hand shook slightly, setting it down. Warren, I'm sorry about... She glanced at the 3 men. People are talking. Let them talk. Mitchell's been in here, showed everyone architectural plans for that development. Says it'll bring jobs, tax revenue, make Cedar County prosperous again. She lowered her voice. Says you're sick, that you need help but won't accept it. You believe him? Sarah's eyes were kind, tired. I don't know what to believe anymore. You've always been sharp, Warren. But grief does things to people, and Mitchell seems so organized, professional. She walked away before I could answer. I drank my coffee watching the street. Slush turning to mud as March warmed up, pickups passing, every driver someone I knew, or thought I knew. The bell over the door rang. Mitchell walked in, waved to the 3 ranchers at the far booth. They waved back. He ordered coffee to go, chatted with Sarah like they were old friends. On his way out, he stopped at my table. Uncle Warren, glad I ran into you. He set a business card on the table. Memory care facility in North Platte. Top-rated, beautiful grounds. Excellent staff. I've already secured you a spot. Move-in date is April 15th. I think you'll be very comfortable there. I'm not going anywhere. The eviction notice says different, but I'm flexible. If you prefer a different facility, we can look at options. He sipped his coffee. The important thing is getting you proper care before you hurt yourself or someone else. I'm not the one people should be worried about. Mitchell smiled, patient, understanding. The smile you give a confused old man. I know this feels like betrayal, but someday you'll understand we did this out of love. He left. The 3 ranchers watched him go with approval on their faces. I finished my coffee alone. The storage unit was on the edge of town. One of those self-service places where people keep things they don't have room for. I'd never been here before. Didn't know Mitchell rented space here, but his son Tyler did. And Tyler had given me the key. The kid was waiting in the parking lot, sitting in his beat-up Honda with the engine off despite the cold. He looked scared when I pulled up. 17 years old, still had that baby face, but his eyes were old. Mr. Dalton, he got out of his car. I wasn't sure you'd come. You said you had something to show me. He looked around the parking lot, empty except for us. My dad doesn't know I have this key. If he finds out, he won't, not from me. Tyler pulled out a key ring, led me to Unit 47. The irony wasn't lost on me. Same number as Bess. Inside, the unit was packed with boxes. File boxes, the kind lawyers use. Tyler turned on the overhead light, pulled out 3 boxes, opened them. Papers, hundreds of pages. Practice, signatures, my name, Doris's name, written over and over in Mitchell's handwriting. Getting closer each time until they were nearly perfect. He's been doing this for months, Tyler said. His voice cracked. Since last spring, I found these when I was looking for my birth certificate. I didn't understand at first. Then I heard him and Aunt Vivian talking. Dude. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking. I recorded them. I know I shouldn't have, but... He pressed play. Mitchell's voice filled the small space. The old man signed the POA last week. Doesn't even remember. I backdated it 6 months just to be safe. Once Mom dies, we file everything, get the conservatorship, and we're clear. Vivian's voice. What if he fights it? He won't. He's too confused, too old. And even if he tries, who's going to believe him over us? We've got documents, medical assessments, everything. By May, we'll have sold the cattle, closed on the land deal, and be in Costa Rica before anyone figures it out. What about Doris's real will? What real will? There's no evidence it exists. Even if he claims there is, we'll say it's fabrication. Grief-induced delusion. The courts eat that up. The recording continued. Details about forging the medical assessment, bribing the notary, paying off the doctor who was supposed to examine me. All of it planned, calculated, deliberate. Tyler stopped the recording. There's more. Hours of it. Calls with the developers, planning sessions, them laughing about how easy it was to fool everyone. He looked at me with the tears in his eyes. Mr. Dalton, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to stop him. He's my dad. But what he's doing... This recording, I said. Can you testify about it? In court? Yes. I'll testify against my own father, if it stops this. Tyler wiped his eyes. He used to be different. Before the money problems, before the gambling, he used to be... I don't know, not this. I put my hand on the kid's shoulder. You're doing the right thing. That takes courage. My mom left him last month. She knew something was wrong, but not what. When I told her, she said she'd testify too if you needed her. Tyler closed the boxes. Can I help you carry these to your truck? We loaded 6 boxes of evidence. Forged signatures, practice documents, bank statements showing Mitchell's debts, contracts with the developers. Everything Grace would need. Tyler, why are you helping me? This is your inheritance too. He looked at me. Because it's wrong. And because Mrs. Dalton, your wife, she used to bring me cookies when I was little. Used to let me help feed the calves when Dad was too busy with his deals. She was kind. He slammed the truck tailgate. Kind people deserve justice, even if it costs me everything. I drove to Grace's office with 6 boxes of evidence and a recording that would send my nephew to prison. Grace listened to the recording twice, made notes on her yellow legal pad, examined the practice signatures through a magnifying glass. This is extraordinary, she said finally. Mr. Dalton, with this evidence and Tyler's willingness to testify, we don't just have a case. We have a criminal case. Fraud, forgery, elder abuse, conspiracy. Mitchell and Vivian are looking at serious prison time. What do we do? First, I contact the sheriff. This is beyond civil court now, and she organized the documents into piles. Second, we file emergency motions to reverse the conservatorship, unfreeze your accounts, and void the eviction notice. With this evidence, the judge will act immediately. And the ranch? The forged will is void. The power of attorney is void. Everything Mitchell filed is fraudulent. Combined with your wife's diary and the precedent from the 1890s case, your handwritten will stands. She smiled. Mr. Dalton, you're going to keep your ranch. Relief flooded through me. I sat back in the chair, felt tension drain from muscles that had been tight for weeks. There's one thing I still don't understand what I said. Doris's note, the brand will tell the truth. I found her diary. I have Tyler's recording. But I can't figure out what she meant about the brand. Grace was quiet for a moment. Maybe it's not literal. Maybe she meant your reputation, your integrity, the mark you've made on this community. That's what will prove the truth in the end. Maybe. But I kept thinking about Jake finding that fresh scarring under Bess's old brand. Something Doris had done deliberately, carefully, in her last weeks. The brand will tell the truth. I just had to figure out what truth Bess was hiding. My phone rang. Roy. Warren, the auction house called. Dale Pritchard wants to talk to you about the May cattle auction. Says it's important. Can you meet him there in an hour? I'll be there. Grace gathered the evidence. I'll file these motions today. And Warren, we're going to win this. Your wife made sure of it. Midnight. The house creaked in the dark, those settling sounds I'd heard for 50 years, but tonight felt different. Threatening, I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off, staring at Doris's photograph on the wall. 45 years. Her smile in that photo. The one from our 30th anniversary. Happy, safe, trusting me to protect what we'd built. And I'd almost lost it all. On the table, Mitchell's latest offer. Delivered by courier this afternoon, $500,000, cash, keep the house in 20 acres, sign a confidentiality agreement, walk away, $500,000. More money than I'd see in 5 lifetimes of ranching. My hand touched the pen, the paper. Outside, wind moved through the bare trees. Spring coming, but tonight felt like the dead of winter. I thought about Tyler, 17 years old, willing to destroy his relationship with his father, to do the right thing. Thought about Roy, offering me money without asking when I'd pay it back. Thought about Grace, working pro bono because she believed in justice. And here I sat, old man with bad knees and a mortgage paid off 40 years ago, considering surrender because I was tired. The pen touched paper, Doris's handwriting on her last note. Warren, the brand will tell the truth. I set the pen down. She'd spent her final weeks protecting me, hiding evidence, documenting fraud, leaving clues, fighting for our life, even as cancer killed her. And I was going to sign it away for money, the photo on the wall, Doris's eyes looking at me across time. I'm sorry, I said to the empty kitchen. I'm so tired. I don't know if I can do this. The house was silent, no answer coming from photos or memories or prayers. I picked up Mitchell's offer. Read it again, the easy way out. Comfortable retirement, no more fighting, no more being called incompetent and confused in front of people who used to respect me. Just my signature. That's all it would take. My hand cramped around the pen. From the barn I heard it. Bess's low call. That specific sound Doris always answered. The one that meant water or feed or attention needed. I stood up. My knee popped. The night was cold when I stepped outside, mud sucking at my boots from the day's thaw. The barn light clicked on, fluorescent buzz fighting the dark. Bess stood in her stall, looking at me with those calm eyes that had seen 40 years of this ranch. What are you telling me, girl? She shifted, her hide catching the light. The brand. Number 47. Faded but clear, I ran my hand over it. Felt the scar tissue Jake had noticed. Fresh work, careful and deliberate. Doris had done this. In her last weeks, sick and dying, she'd worked on this cow. Why? I looked closer. The scar tissue formed a pattern under the hair. Not random, precise. Numbers. I grabbed the clippers from the tack room, carefully shaved a small patch around the brand. The fresh scarring revealed coordinates. 40.8 degree N, 102.3 degree DU. My hands shook. I knew these numbers. South pasture, corner property line. The place Mitchell had been surveying with those developers last spring. Doris had literally branded the truth onto this cow. I grabbed my phone, called Roy despite the hour. Warren? His voice thick with sleep. What's wrong? I need you at the ranch. Now, bring a shovel. It's midnight. Doris left me coordinates. I know where she hid something. Roy was silent for a moment. Give me 10 minutes. The auction house smelled like livestock and popcorn. Dale Pritchard was in his office, going through papers for the spring sale. He looked up when I walked in, waved me to a chair. Warren, thanks for coming. He poured coffee from a thermos, strong and bitter. I wanted to talk to you about the May 15th auction. Mitchell's been calling, says he's selling your entire herd that day. Liquidation sale. He doesn't have authority to do that. He's got court papers saying otherwise. Conservatorship documents, power of attorney, the works. Dale sipped his coffee. Warren, I've known you 40 years. Bought cattle from you, sold cattle for you, watched you build that herd from nothing. And I got to tell you, something feels wrong about this whole situation. It is wrong. Mitchell forged those documents. Dale nodded slowly. That's what I figured. So here's what I'm thinking. May 15th auction, it's scheduled, it's advertised. Mitchell's expecting it to go through. But there's a regulation. All cattle have to pass vet inspection day of sale. Disease check, brand verification, health certificate. I know the regulation. What you maybe don't know is I can request extended inspection on any animal I consider questionable. Older cattle, previous health issues, unclear brands. I got discretion to have Doc Jensen take his time. Dale met my eyes. Your oldest cows, they're going to need thorough examination. Very thorough. Could take hours to clear them for sale. Understanding hit me. You're giving me time, and I'm following regulations. If, during that examination, something comes up that needs addressing, well, we can't sell cattle that aren't cleared. He pulled out the auction schedule. Bess is listed here. Number 47, she's what, 40 years old? Doc Jensen's going to want to check her real careful. Dale, if you do this, Mitchell will come after you. Let him. I got 40 years of reputation in this business. Mitchell's got fancy lawyers and forged papers. Dale stood up, extended his hand. You need something at that auction. You let me know. I'll make sure it happens. I shook his hand. Why are you helping me? Because Doris used to bring my wife soup when she was sick. Because you taught my son how to handle cattle when he was scared of them. Because this is what we do in Cedar County. We take care of our own. He walked me to the door. May 15th. Bring whatever evidence you've got. We'll make sure the whole town sees it. Outside, April rain was starting. Warm rain, the kind that smelled like earth and growing things. Spring was coming, whether Mitchell wanted it or not. I drove home past fields turning green, past fence lines that would stay mine, past the barn, where Bess carried 40 years of ranch history and Doris's final message burned into her hide. The offer from Mitchell was still on my kitchen table. I picked it up, read it one last time, then fed it into the wood stove. Some things you don't sell, not for any price. May 15th, auction day. The auction house was packed. 200 people, maybe more, filling the tiered seats that overlooked the cattle pens. Ranchers I'd known 50 years, townspeople who'd watched this fight unfold, developers in suits who'd flown in from Omaha to watch their investment materialize. Mitchell sat front row with Vivian and 3 men in expensive clothes. He looked confident, relaxed, like a man who'd already won. The air smelled like livestock and dust and popcorn from the concession stand. Spring sun poured through the open sides, warming the metal roof. The sound of cattle moving through chutes, hooves on steel, the auctioneer testing his microphone. I sat in back with Roy and Grace. Tyler was 3 rows ahead, alone, not looking at his father. Dale Pritchard stepped to the podium. Morning, folks. We've got a full sale today. Before we start, I want to remind everyone that all livestock must pass veterinary inspection per state regulations. Doc Jensen's here to certify health and brand verification. Mitchell stood. Dale, is this going to take long? We've got buyers on tight schedules. Long as it takes to do it right, Mitchell. Your uncle's cattle are quality stock, worth doing proper inspection. The first cattle went through, young heifers, steers, breeding stock. The auctioneer's chant filled the barn, that rapid-fire rhythm I'd heard 1,000 times. Numbers climbing, paddles raising, deals made. 2 hours in, Bess's number came up. Lot 47, Dale called. 40-year-old cow, foundation stock of the Dalton herd. Sentimental value to some, beef value to others. Let's get her inspected. Bess walked into the chute, calm as always. Doc Jensen approached with his clipboard, started his examination. Checked her teeth, her eyes, her body condition. Then he stopped, his hand on her hide, where the brand was. Dale, can you come look at this? Dale walked over, examined the brand. Huh, that's interesting. What is it? Mitchell's voice, sharp now. Looks like there's scarring here. Recent work, maybe last few months. Hair's growing different. Doc Jensen pulled out his clippers. I need to check this closer. Brand verification requires clear reading. It's a 40-year-old brand, Mitchell said. Just sell the cow. Can't sell with unclear brand status. Regulations. Doc Jensen started clipping carefully around the brand. The barn went quiet. Everyone watching. The numbers appeared. Fresh scarring under the old brand, deliberate and precise. 40. 8 men, 102.3 genetic. Those are coordinates, someone in the crowd said. Doc Jensen looked at Dale. Dale looked at me. I stood up. South pasture, corner property line. That's what those coordinates mark. Mitchell was on his feet. This is absurd. Warren's having another episode. Can we please just finish the auction? I think we should check it out, Roy said, standing. If there's something at those coordinates, seems worth knowing before we sell a man's life's work. Murmurs through the crowd. Agreement, curiosity, confusion. Grace stood. Your Honor. She gestured to Judge Webb, who'd come to watch the auction. May I suggest a brief recess while we investigate these coordinates? If there's evidence of fraud affecting this estate sale, the court should know before authorizing liquidation. Judge Webb stood slowly. 75 years old, old-school Nebraska justice. That seems reasonable. Mr. Pritchard, can we pause this sale? Yes, sir. Then let's take a ride. 40 people followed us to the south pasture. Trucks and cars forming a convoy, dust rising on the ranch road. Mitchell and Vivian tried to leave, but the sheriff, who'd been sitting quietly in the back of the auction house, suggested they stay. The coordinates led to an old fence post, corner of the property. Nothing special, just prairie grass and barbed wire and Nebraska wind. Roy brought the post hole digger from his truck, started digging where the GPS said to dig. 3 feet down, he hit metal. We pulled out a box. Waterproof, sealed tight. Inside, wrapped in plastic, original survey maps showing property lines. Dated and notarized, proving Mitchell's developers had been planning to take an extra 50 acres that weren't part of the sale. Recordings. Doris's voice, weak but clear. Mitchell came today with papers. Said Warren needed to sign for tax purposes. I read them. They weren't tax papers. They were land transfer documents. He tried to pressure Warren while I was in the hospital. I stopped it, but I know he'll try again when I'm gone. This recording is dated April 3rd, 2023. I'm making this so Warren has proof of what Mitchell planned. More recordings. Mitchell and Vivian discussing the fraud. Dates, amounts, plans to flee to Costa Rica once the sale closed. The original notarized will. Doris's actual signature, witnessed and legal, leaving everything to me for life. Then to Roy's grandson. Forensic evidence. Ink analysis showing Mitchell's forged will was created weeks before Doris died, not months like he claimed. Grace examined each document. Your Honor, this is comprehensive proof of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Judge Webb looked at Mitchell. Son, you got anything to say? Mitchell's face was white. Vivian was crying, both of them silent. Sheriff, Judge Webb said, I think you need to make some arrests. The sheriff moved forward. Mitchell Dalton, Vivian Dalton, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and attempted theft. You have the right to remain silent. The crowd watched in silence as Mitchell and Vivian were handcuffed. Led to the sheriff's car, driven away from the ranch they'd tried to steal. Tyler stood next to me, tears running down his face. I'm sorry, Mr. Dalton. I'm so sorry. You did the right thing. Your mother would be proud. Roy put his hand on my shoulder. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Dale Pritchard cleared his throat. Folks, I think this auction is postponed indefinitely. Mr. Dalton, your cattle are staying put. The crowd started dispersing. Trucks driving away. Developers heading back to Omaha empty-handed. I stood at that fence post, holding the box Doris had buried, and felt her protecting me one last time from beyond the grave. The brand told the truth, just like she promised. The courthouse smelled like old wood and floor wax. Same smell from when I was a kid, coming here with my father to file brand registrations and property records. Some things don't change. Judge Webb sat at the bench, looking down at Mitchell and Vivian in orange jumpsuits. Their lawyer, a public defender now, the fancy firm had dropped them, stood between them. Shuffling papers that wouldn't help, the courtroom was full. Roy and Grace sat behind me. Tyler sat on the opposite side, alone. Pastor Frank was there, looking ashamed. Dale Pritchard, Doc Jensen, half of Cedar County, watching justice get done. Mr. Dalton, Judge Webb said, the court has reviewed all evidence. The forensic analysis confirms the will filed by Mitchell Dalton was forged. The power of attorney was backdated and falsified. The medical assessment claiming incompetence was fabricated using a deceased physician's credentials. He looked at Mitchell. Son, this is about as comprehensive a fraud as I've seen in 40 years on this bench. Mitchell stared at the table, said nothing. Vivian Dalton, as a CPA, you used your professional credentials to create false financial documents, freeze accounts, and facilitate elder abuse. You betrayed not just your uncle, but your professional oath. Vivian was crying, quiet, shoulders shaking. Mitchell Dalton, you forged legal documents, stole from family, and planned to sell property that wasn't yours. You manipulated community sentiment and attempted to institutionalize a competent man against his will. Judge Webb removed his glasses. This court sentences you to 8 years in the Nebraska State Penitentiary. Vivian Dalton, you're sentenced to 6 years. Both of you will make full restitution for legal fees, emotional damages, and attempted theft. The gavel came down. Mitchell looked back at me as they let him out. No anger in his face now. Just emptiness. The look of a man who'd gambled everything and lost. Tyler stood as his father passed. Mitchell stopped, said something I couldn't hear. Tyler shook his head, turned away. Outside, spring sun warmed the courthouse steps. May afternoon, the kind of day that makes you believe in new beginnings. Grace shook my hand. The ranch is officially yours again. All court orders vacated, accounts unfrozen, eviction notice void. You're free and clear. What do I owe you? Pro bono, Mr. Dalton. Some cases you take because they're right. She smiled. Besides, I learned something about Nebraska law. That 1890s precedent, I'm writing it up for the State Bar Journal. Your wife's foresight might help other families someday. Roy drove me home. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. 50 years of friendship meant silence was comfortable. At the ranch gate, Tyler was waiting in his Honda. He got out when we pulled up. Mr. Dalton, I wanted to... His voice broke. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not stopping him sooner. You stopped him when it mattered. That took courage. My mom's in Omaha. She's getting divorced, starting over. I'm going to community college in the fall, agribusiness program. And he looked at the fields. I was wondering if maybe I could work here this summer. Learn ranching. Real ranching. Not the kind my dad was planning. I looked at Roy. Roy nodded. Be here Monday morning, 5 a.m. Bring work gloves and a strong back. Tyler's face lit up. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. I won't let you down. He drove off, dust trailing behind him. You sure about that? Roy asked. His grandmother was a good woman. Kid deserves a chance to prove he's not his father. Evening now. I sat on the porch with coffee, watching the sun drop toward the horizon. The fields stretched green and growing, spring wheat coming up strong. Cattle grazing in pastures my grandfather had fenced 80 years ago. Bess was in the near field, her brand healed over. The coordinates that saved everything now hidden again under growing hair. She'd earned retirement. No more breeding, no more work, just prairie grass and sunshine for however long she had left. On the porch rail, Doris's photo, the one from our anniversary. I'd brought it out here to watch the sunset with me. You did it, I said to her. Saved everything. Even when you were dying, you were still protecting me. The wind moved through the cottonwoods. Somewhere, a meadowlark sang. My phone buzzed. Text from Jake, Roy's grandson. Mr. Tucker says I start working your place next week. Learning from the best. Thank you for the chance. The next generation. Learning the land, the work, the responsibility. Doris's will had left the ranch to Jake when I died. He'd earn it honestly, not through theft. Inside the house, I heard my phone ringing. Grace probably, with more paperwork to sign. Or the insurance company, or the bank, or one of 100 things that needed handling when you nearly lost everything and got it back. But that could wait. Right now, I sat on my porch in the spring evening, watching my cattle graze my land, drinking coffee my wife used to make, and feeling grateful. Mitchell had thought silence meant surrender. Turned out it was just preparation. The land remembers who loved it. And now it remembered who tried to steal it too. 3 weeks later, I sat on the porch at dawn with my coffee. The rain gauge showed 2 inches from last night's storm. Good for the wheat. I opened Doris's field notebook, wrote the date, the weather, the first report of growth in the northeast pasture. Continuing her work, keeping the record. The flowers I'd planted on her grave were blooming now, bright against the gray stone. Tyler had been there yesterday, left fresh wildflowers. Said it felt right to honor the woman who'd saved the ranch. Mitchell's sentencing had made the papers. 8 years. The developer's lawsuit collapsed when the fraud came out. Dale's auction house sold their equipment at pennies on the dollar. Roy bought some of it. Said it felt like justice. The land remembers who loved it and who tried to sell it. Doris was right about that. Right about checking the paper trail, about precision, about measuring twice, right about the brand telling the truth. They thought silence was surrender. Turned out it was just an old man learning his wife had been protecting him from the grave. From the barn, I heard Tyler's voice, talking with Jake about proper feed ratios. The kid had been here every morning at 5, never complained, worked until dark, learning the life his father had wanted to destroy. The sun cleared the tree line, warming the porch boards. The fields stretched green toward the horizon. Bess grazed near the fence, her brand hidden under summer hair but carrying the coordinates that changed everything. Some battles you win with noise. This one I won with a dead woman's foresight, a cow's hide, and a grandson brave enough to betray his father. But the real victory wasn't in the winning, it was in the staying. In the morning, coffee in the rain gauge and the field notebook that would outlast us all. The land remembers, and so would I.